Hello, denizens of the internet. Welcome to my latest Hackintoshing adventure. Well, I'm sorry to say I am leaving my Ryzen and I'm going back to Intel. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Yes, that is true. I am leaving the AMD Ryzen Fold and I'm going back to Intel. I mean, obviously, I started Hackintoshing on Intel because that was the only sane choice back in the FX days. This did look promising. So how did this get started? How did I end up with this behemoth 3950X, and why didn't it work out? Well, first of all, if you have been watching my channel, I did attempt working with someone else to build the supreme audio Hackintosh that was better than anything that Apple had built up to that point. He was retiring his cheese grater Mac after many, many years, and we thought, well, let's roll the dice. Let's try an AMD Hackintosh. And basically, I broke every single Hackintoshing rule. Rules such as, work with a platform that work with a system that work with a platform that other people have already built on. And I broke all those rules, because I have been building Hackintoshes for a while, and I had a terrific amount of hubris, and I thought I was a really smarty pants person, and I would be able to do it, but I didn't. And we were working with a ASRock creator, and it had Thunderbolt apparently, and I was working with OpenCore for the first time. So everything was a first time, and we just could not get it running properly. So we gave up on that, and we built a regular 9900K version of a Hackintosh using a designer, whatever, Gigabyte board. And that's how I ended up with this. And I thought, okay, I'm still going to try working out how to get this thing Hackintosh. But I did some research this time and found out that this MSI board, the MPG X570 Gaming Wi-Fi Edge, worked on the Hackintosh platform. I got it. I got it up and running. Thank you. And thanks to the help of Pavo and Rectimus on the Discord forum. They were absolutely essential in helping me get this up and running. And it was okay. And what do I mean by okay? I mean, it had 16 cores, 32 threads. I should have been ripping through all my Logic stuff and my Final Cut Pro stuff and my Affinity drawings and stuff, but it wasn't. It just felt sluggish, and which was weird. It didn't feel as smooth as my Intel Hackintosh builds. It was just like nagging me. And plus there were the other tiny problems. Where are my notes here? For instance, the webcam. The webcam just wasn't working reliably. It didn't matter which USB port I stuck it in, and it might have been a USB issue. Again, these are things that you have to deal with when you're mapping the USB ports on your Hackintosh, but I did it manually. I thought I had done a proper job. I kind of know what I'm doing, and thank you for Hackintool. That's an amazing piece of software to help you triage all these problems, but it would freeze. And if I was Zooming with a client, it would freeze. And that isn't very, very good. When I was FaceTiming, it would freeze. And then, of course, I had the ongoing issues with getting my DAC working, my Edirol DAC. This is a historic issue with regards to the AMD platform as it relates to Hackintoshing. Maybe it's been solved. I don't know. So with the one caveat to all of this is the people out there who are really good at this and experts, and you're screaming at the screen, well, if you just use the Asus tough something or other board with the 3700, then X, then it would work great. Everything that you're talking about would work great. I had this notion that maybe it was like too many cores and it was confusing the Mac OS. I don't know. The bottom line is, in this crazy flipped upside down world, the idea that you wanted a stable Macintosh platform to be able to work on and use as your daily driver. And the fact that we're still talking about Hackintoshing is very, very weird, because if I wanted a stable daily driver, then I would just get a Mac, like a real Mac. But I'm not completely stable. I went back to what I knew, which was Hackintoshing a Intel platform. So what I got was the updated version of the Designer, whatever, the Gigabyte Z490 Vision G. There's a D version, which comes with Thunderbolt. I didn't want to get that because I don't need Thunderbolt, but this is upgradable to Thunderbolt. And people are using it right now online, and so there's documentation as to just how to get this thing up and running. So I'm going back to some sanity and following Hackintosh rules, and the most important one is to find a platform that other people are working with, because they have already worked out the bugs, or they're going to help you. The processor I went with was the 10700, not the K. And I know the level of anxiety that one feels by not getting the K version, because the K version, that's the king. Maybe that's why Intel used the word K, because it's the king version, not this lowly peasant, not overcoreable. Is that a word? Overclock, not overcore. Non-overclockable version of this CPU. So that was, they give you, have this sense of anxiety. But I'll tell you what cured me of this sense of anxiety was the K version up here in Canada was more than $160 more than the non-K version. But the non-K version starts out at 2.9 gigahertz, and the K version is something more, and it's overclockable. And don't you think you should be spending the other $160 for the K version? No. I figured that this is probably going to be fine. I mean, it's 8-core, 16 threads. This box should rock. I should mention one of the other reasons that I just figured I needed to switch from my Ryzen setup here. Doesn't it look beautiful? Was that the straw that broke the camel's back was I upgraded my Lumix G9 here to be able to use Vlog footage. Now, Vlog is a professional standard for video, and it increases your dynamic range. It's a little bit more difficult to manage, but the extra data that Vlog and the setup on the Vlog setup here meant that I was shooting at 422 10-bit video, and when I loaded it up onto this mega monster super deluxe biggie machine, it just choked it. It didn't work. It didn't like working with the log profile. Well, it's something that obviously I don't need in this in this YouTube land, because I mean the videos are tiny, but I'm a nerd. I like experimenting with stuff, and it was something that I wanted to work with. And as you'll see when this footage hits the screen, it's stunning. I mean, it's so much better than any of the regular profiles in the camera. I don't know why I didn't grab that Vlog update sooner, but it's a lot of fun to work with, but it wasn't really working well on my Super Deluxe AMD 3950X 16-core 32-thread box. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to resurrect my old 7700K. There I did get the K. Actually, that K chip, the 4-core 8-thread, was about the same amount of money as the 8-core 16-thread. I can't add anymore. A 10700. Too many numbers to try to remember. But I tried the log footage on my old 7700K Hackintosh, which I updated using OpenCore, and it's like super fast. And it was running better, actually. I mean, there were aspects of it that, it just couldn't process quickly enough. But overall, the experience was better on my 7700K than it was on my AMD. And that was it. That was the reason I just had to abandon this whole AMD experiment in the land of Hackintoshing. And then I got this. It worked out well. Now, one thing that I do caution you about this, one of the wonderful things actually about the 10700 is that Intel ships a box cooler with it. And what you need to do with this is throw it in the garbage, because it is crap. The thing that this Intel cooler is good for is posting your board before you stick it all into your box as a final build, because I like to have the board open and I stick the GPU in it and all the RAM, and I just see whether everything works, including the CPU, right? Because you don't want to stick it all into a box, find out it doesn't work, and then rip it all apart again. So when posting your gear, this worked really well. But just for a laugh, I thought, let's start up Final Cut Pro and see how it's doing. Well, this thing started screaming, and I thought I was smelling burning from somewhere around the motherboard, and I quickly turned it off. So, yes, this is garbage. I'm running my favorite Noctua. What is it? The Noctua NH-U12A. I love this cooler. And what are the things I wanted to bring up? So Vlog. One of the quirks of my AMD setup was my wonderful GPU, my Radeon VII GPU. I could only get one of the display ports to work, and that was irritating. I have two monitors, so one was in DisplayPort and one was in HDMI. I guess that's not so bad, but the moment I put this little baby together, it worked. All my display ports worked. It's just, the thing is, the Mac OS is built to work with Intel processors. Now, the geniuses out there have managed to make it work on AMD, and that's really cool. And if your work is light work and you want an inexpensive PC, then I highly recommend an AMD build, because it does work, but it didn't work to the professional level that I needed for my daily excitement. And from a performance point of view, this was working fine. If you use Geekbench, it comes out to about the same speed as an iMac Pro 10 core. So that's not so bad. And again, for a lot less money. Oh, again, one of the seductive things about the AMD build is that it might not have worked so well as a daily driver, but it was a benchmark monster. So if you could satisfy yourself looking at Geekbench scores and Cinebench scores, then that my previous build was perfect. But unfortunately, I don't spend all day just benchmarking. I actually have to do work, and that's why I'm retiring, and I will be selling both of that. Oh, Unigine Heaven. Okay, so it's a crappy gaming benchmark, but curiously enough, I fired that up. I was getting about 57 frames per second on the AMD Radeon 7 combo, but with this I was getting close to 150, so nearly 3 times the frame rate. Obviously, it's much happier in an Intel environment. Mac OS is built to exploit the Intel CPU. Everything is so far has been a real joy to work. Everything is working now. The webcam, the Final Cut Pro, Logic I get all the tracks that I want. I'm not getting weird sounds, which I was getting with this, that required me to reboot. The thing is, and I know I mentioned this at the beginning, that yes, there might have been a combo of Ryzen processor, the 3700 or the 3100 or whatever, and the specific board that does not exhibit any of the issues that I've just described to you. But I can't keep experimenting. I've got to make a living. And so I've returned to the Intel fold. Intel, I'm sure, will be thrilled, because quite frankly, if you go to my local Canada computer store, it's about 80% AMD and 20% Intel on the shelves there. in the hobbyist gaming front, Intel is, if that's a sample of one, Intel is not doing so good. So the fact that I'm returning to the Intel fold and I've invested in a 10700, I'm sure Intel out there is just thrilled. I'm sure they're going to want to sponsor my future videos because I've come back to the Intel fold. Probably not. Anyway, so thank you very much for watching this edition of something, I don't know, my Hackintosh video. It's a Hackintosh video. I do so many different kinds of videos that I've completely screwed up with your minds out there. You don't know what kind of video you're getting whenever you come to my channel, which is my preference. I would rather keep you guessing. So, till next time, denizens, so long. Oh, buy a Dottie t-shirt. Denizens of the Internet. That's what it stands for. And if you don't know it, I've actually spelled it out there. Stay tuned for some other video at some point later. Thank you, denizens.